Okay, well, without further ado, we'd like to, everyone, round of applause, welcome our two guest speakers, Catherine Miller and Cheryl Adam.
Hi there, I'm Cheryl Adam. I'm a librarian in the Humanities and Social Sciences Division. Are you hearing me in the back row? Is the mic on? Would you say? No? Yes? All right, we'll work on the technical problems. You'll let us know. I work in the Humanities Social Sciences Division in Kerner Library. I'm the liaison librarian for psychology, sociology, Asian studies, and English and philosophy. So 3 of you here are my people, you psychologists. And my colleague here is...
My name is Catherine Miller, and I may have worked with some of you if you're taking Biology 140, and in many other classes around biology, botany, microbiology, zoology, and I also work with the land and food systems, so agriculture, food science, those kinds of questions. So one of the things you're going to start seeing is that there's subject librarians in the library who can help you with your specific questions in classes that you're doing the research for them. We wanted to give you a kind of a sense of where we're going over the next hour and a bit. We will be ending by 6:30. You may remember that we had a survey that we sent out to the group. And the idea there was to get a sense of where you all are at with your library research, and so we could really target the questions that you still have. So one of the things that we learned was that a third of you have never had library instruction. So good news is that this is going to be a jam-packed hour for you. There's a lot of content for you. The good news for the people who have had library instruction is there's a lot of new stuff here as well. And we're going to have several times during the session where you actually are doing your own work on your laptops. So thank you for bringing your laptops today. So in that survey that we sent out, most of you felt comfortable with the idea of peer review. And we'll talk a little bit more about that, because one of the things I've noticed in some conversations with students is sometimes they hear peer review, but they're thinking something else. So we'll make sure that everybody's really comfortable with that. 43% of you are still needing some help with finding the right disciplined databases, and that would be something I would expect. 51% are still looking for some help with getting for the literature from your mentor. 62% still wanted some help with your background information, and so we'll be showing you some great ebook collections and other places to go. 81% of you did not know how to find the most highly cited literature. This is a really excellent strategy for making sense of the literature, which also came out in the data that you were looking for more help with. You've got this result set. How do I know what's important here and what's not? So this is going to help you with that. And 2 more really great things. The majority of you, 83%, didn't know about Ask Away. We'll make sure that you leave here knowing that you've got help 7 days a week until 9 p.m. most nights from a library staff person to help you with your research. It's chat reference. And 94% of you didn't realize who your subject librarian is. So we're going to make sure that you know that by the end of today and how to contact that person. So what we did is we asked in that survey, remember, for what was one question that you really wanted to know before the end of this workshop. So that's how we've really clustered the delivery. In the next section, we're going to talk about this first one. I started it off with this one, how to make a good research question. That's a great question in itself, and we're going to touch on that throughout this workshop. That point about what makes a good research question is really an iterative process of you working with your mentor, working with the literature that you're finding and coming back to that literature. So we will talk about that process. And we will cover the following. Who's your subject librarian? Where do I start my research? What are the discipline-specific databases, and how to get access to those great full-text articles.
Okay, while we're doing this, we are going to take advantage of your ability to have many windows open. So we have a set of slides that we're working from today, and at the end of the session, we're going to tweak them and make sure everything's spelled correctly, and then we're going to send them to you so you'll have them later. Right now you can just look at them. But what I would like you to do is to open a window on your in your browser and go to the library's homepage. And why isn't that displaying, Catherine? Interesting, huh? So, on the library homepage, if you look across the tabs, you'll see one that says Get Research Help, and click on the down arrow. Everybody with me? Click on the down arrow. And then Finding Resources, there's a link that says Research Guides. Click on that. And there's a research guide for pretty well every department and school at UBC. And it will slowly display. The research guides are compiled by the subject specialist librarians who live in the world of whatever that discipline is all the time. And they're not displaying because why?
I might have made it too big.
Okay. How are you guys doing? I've clicked on the subject. So guess what? It's not displaying the way it should, but that's all right. There's a search box. So I'm going to look for the psychology research guide by typing in psychology. And you can type in the department that your mentor's in. Those of you who are doing neurology can type in medicine or psychology. And now we're going to see a list of guides, and I'm going to click on the one that says psychology. So is everybody at a research guide now? Everybody doing okay?
If anybody needs a hand, just give a wave and I can come help you out.
Yeah, have a look and make sure your neighbor's at a research guide. And research guides vary a bit from discipline to discipline, but typically they include key resources on the landing page. So in the case of psychology, there's a really good subject encyclopedia right at the top. So if I was looking for search terms for my topic, words that I don't know yet, I could look in here. There are also the key databases. There's a link here for all of the databases for psychology, and that's a lot because it's a very multidisciplinary field. There's information about how to find books, in this case about psychology. There's information on how to find theses. And we'll come back to theses a bit later. It's a kind of publication that you can look at, you can mine for the references at the end, even if you don't need to read the entire thesis. So what I want you to do now is find the research guide for your research project and record the URL in the spreadsheet that we sent you. So you should all open up the spreadsheet. And here's the tab that says Research Guide, and I would cut and paste the URL of the Psychology Research Guide right into the spreadsheet there. Is that a bit bigger? Everybody doing okay? You have to say yes or no. Can everyone look at their neighbor and make sure their neighbor's okay? Tell me how your neighbor's doing. Yes?
What if you don't have a spreadsheet on the computer yet?
Then just remind yourself to do it later. How about that? Or pop it into a Word document. So what the idea with the spreadsheet is not so much that you complete this assignment, but that you create a document that you can use when you're doing research. So one of the things that you will want to use is the research guide. Okay, the The other piece of information to put into the spreadsheet is the name and the contact information for the subject liaison librarians. For UBC Vancouver for psychology, it's me. So if I were filling in this spreadsheet, I would put my name, my contact information right there. So you need to find who's your librarian, who's the librarian for your discipline. Those of you in neurology will have a couple of librarians. You'll have a psychology librarian and a medicine librarian. Who needs clarification? Raise your hand. Okay, so the next thing is I want you to open a web, we've got the library website. Let me get back here. Oh, let me go back to the library homepage. So you're at a research guide off the library's website. What I want you to do now is put into a Google search the name of your mentor. I want you to find your mentor's UBC website, or alternately, your mentor's lab's UBC website. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to pretend that my mentor is Janet Worker from the psychology department at UBC. So if I wanted to find her website, I would type in Janet Worker, UBC, into Google. And then here's her profile. And typically, this will not be true for everybody's mentor, but your mentor will have a list of recent publications. And when you look at that list of recent publications, you can mine it for keywords, for journals that publish articles in your area, so you can go back and look at these journals and find more articles on this topic. So this is, you can learn more about your mentor here, and you can also learn about how research is published and where in this particular discipline. Okay, so I want you found, has everybody got to their mentor's website? Not yet, okay. Who's your mentor? Okay. Those of you who found your mentor's website, I'll come and help you in just a sec. Okay, here's what to do next, folks, and then I'll come and help the people who haven't found their mentor's website yet. So let's suppose that I want to read this article here. Here's an article by my mentor, and I want to read it because I'm interested in her research. So I'm going to take the title of the article and cut it. And how many windows do I have open here? And back here on the library homepage, I can paste the title of the article right into the search box on the library homepage to see if UBC Library provides access to this article. Not everybody was able to find a web page for their mentor. Not every mentor has a web page, but it's good to look for one in any case. If you didn't find a web page, perhaps you can ask your mentor for a list of recent publications. Or we'll find some subject specialized databases later, and you can search for your mentor in there and see what they've published. The other takeaway from this activity is that if you're given an article, if you know the title of it, you can cut and paste the title of that article into the search box on the library's homepage, and if UBC Library gives you access to that journal in print or online, it will magically appear there on your screen. Isn't that good? So the point of the activity here is not necessarily to have you have to fill in the spreadsheet. The idea is to get you thinking about your mentor, about the research that they do, and how you can find that kind of information. So where are we now? Okay.
Excuse me.
Yes.
Quick question. On the third line, you have measures.
Ah,
What do you mean by that?
some of you will be doing research that involves a value that you will need to measure. So if you're researching about memory, how are you going to test that? If you're researching about the strength of some material, what test are you going to use? So not all of you will need a measure, but some of you will. And it's interesting and good and smart to keep track of the measures and how different people measure that same thing in different research that you find. Otherwise, you can't compare it very well, and you might want to keep track of it so that you can figure out which one you would want to use. Good catch. Good reading. Okay, now I have so many web pages open that I won't be able to help myself. All right, so here we are in research guides. I'm going back to my psychology research guide. And right here on the research guide for psychology, right on the landing page, is the major database for psychology, PsycInfo. And the other major database is PubMed. PsycInfo has almost all of psychology. PubMed has all of medicine, including neurology, neuroanatomy, all that neuro stuff, and much of psychology. So to be a completely efficient and complete and thorough searcher, you would need to look in both databases. So for now, we're just going to have a peek into PsycInfo because it is a database that is subject specialized. So we want to use one of these when we're searching. What happened to our Google search?
You've got one more activity. We could do this right now, and then they can...
Okay, all right. I think I turned the wrong page, but we're good. We're going to go this way. This is a discipline-specific database. So all that's in here is psychology. And that means, unlike searching in Google Scholar or in other databases that are multidisciplinary, half of your work is already done because everything that's not psychology is not in the database. So it makes for much more efficient searching. Whenever you're looking at a database, you want to know what kind of information is in it. This one has journal articles, book chapters, and so on and so forth. What kind of information can you find? And then we can connect. Now, because I just logged on to the network here, it's going to ask me for my campus-wide login. If you're already on the network, it won't be asking you. If you're connecting from home, it will ask. I'm going to log in. Okay, so this is what the interface looks like for PsycInfo. How many of you have used a database that looks like this before? Does this look familiar? Yeah? Okay, so EBSCO is a software provider, and it provides for UBC Library people about 40 different databases. So when you're searching in something that looks like this, be sure to look up beside the blue button where it's going to tell you which database you're in. You want to make sure you're in the appropriate database. Now, this database has lots of features, and these features are things that are going to make your searching more efficient and more effective. So if we start from the top here, we can put a word in, or we can tell the database where to search for that word. So if we just put the word in, it's going to search everywhere. It's going to search in the title, in the abstract, all over the place. But we could be more precise and say, we just want to find that word in the title of an article. Or, for example, if you know of a place, where are we here? Where's author affiliation? Here we go. AF, author affiliation. So if your mentor says to you, I know they're doing some really great work on this at Stanford Medical School, then you can search by Stanford Medical School and your keywords, and you'll pull up the research that's done there. Not every database has every feature, but many of the discipline-specific databases that you will be using will have some or all of these features or some slightly different ones, but I encourage you, and Catherine encourages you, to look and see what's there. Because if you're getting gigantic search results, there is a way to make them more precise. Now, the other wonderful thing you can do in a discipline-specific database is from the outset or at the end of your search, limit your search results by a number of different facets or features. In this database, because it's a science database and it's about psychology, you can limit your search results to the age group of the subjects. So you could limit your search results to just children. You can limit your search result by methodology. And that's the killer app for most students. It's like, oh, wow. Because often your professor's going to say, I want empirical research. In this database, you can limit your search results to just empirical research. In psychology, it's very popular to be able to limit your population group to just humans. And so not all these features are going to be present in your database. Obviously, if you're doing physics, your physics subject specialist database is not going to have this humans feature, but it's going to have some other feature that will help you narrow your search results. One last killer part is literature review. So you can limit your search in many discipline-specific databases to literature reviews. And a literature review is an academic paper that's written by an expert. And what that expert does is read all the recent research on a particular topic and say, this research is good, this research has a lot of data, this research can't be compared to that research because they're using a different test or a different measure. But what's the great goodness that this brings to people like you who are starting their research is someone who knows a lot about the topic has done a search and made a summary just for you and for everybody else who can read it. So when you're starting your research, you might want to start with a literature review. And if you could find one written in the last couple of years, yay, because that means a lot of your work has been done and you can sort of sail along or surf along on top of that work. So if you can go back to your research guide for your discipline, make a note of a couple of databases and put them into your spreadsheet. Not absolutely necessary, but we just want you to be thinking deliberately about the discipline-specific databases for your particular research topic.
You also wanted that second part about background information.
Okay. And many research guides, many of them, have links to encyclopedias or handbooks or other kind of research tools that will help you learn more about your subject, will give you an overview, kind of in the way that a literature review does. Those are really useful to read because they're going to tell you terms that you can add to your search. They're going to tell you more keywords. They're going to tell you where your research fits into the world of research. So if your research guide has encyclopedias or annual reviews, you should make a note of them in your spreadsheet.
So hopefully everybody's had a chance to go into their research guide, check it out, add some of the databases that would be the key ones for you to your Excel spreadsheet. many of you are doing topics around medicine, and I wanted to show you one quick source. So on the front page of these research guides, you see these key resources. And they're the ones where you'll find here sometimes some of these background sources. Many of you were saying that you wanted some more help with that. Those encyclopedias or ebook collections like, and I'm going to point out one in particular, MD Consult, contain that kind of background information that you want. They're available online. And I just wanted to quickly show you one. I'm just doing a quick search for diabetes in here to give you a sense of how they've organized this. They've collected together a bunch of information, a bunch of different ebooks, brought them together. And so you've typed in diabetes, but maybe you weren't aware there was two types of diabetes, type 1, type 2. There's some background information here. And then we can get even more specific with content from the medical textbooks on signs and symptoms, etiology, diagnosis, and so forth, treatment and management. So these ebook collections are often the place that you're going to go to get that background information from a reliable source. I wanted to quickly show you as well, for the folks who are using the Medicine General, and for everybody. So one of the things that we were talking about earlier is that there are different libraries supporting the different disciplines here at UBC. So Woodward is the science library. Kerner Library supports the social sciences, arts, humanities. And so for Woodward Library, one of the ways that you might want to take a look at some of those research guides, if you're not exactly sure if you've found the right one, come in through this door. So it's just woodward.library.ubc.ca. And then you can see the different faculties we support. You may have gone into the medicine guide because you thought, hey, medicine, but take a look. There's a lot of guides here under the health and medicine guides, and you may find that there's one which is maybe a little bit more appropriate. So do take a look here. Here's another entry point for you. I also wanted to point out that if you're having any trouble finding your subject librarian, some of the guides don't always tell you. For any of the sciences subjects, you can always contact us through this email account here. You could always contact me as well. I'd be happy to put you in contact with, if I'm not the right person, put you in contact with the right person. Okay. We're going to do another activity. We're going to jump right in. But before we jump in, I just wanted to ask the group, how many have used Web of Science already? Okay, this is good. We're going to jump into Web of Science. We're going to do a quick search in there, come back, and then talk a little bit more. But try that now. For those of you who haven't gone in before, this is one of the doors in. So you go through the library homepage, go to Indexes and Databases, and click on Web of Science. We'll just do...
I'll try.
Sure. We'll just do a quick entry into that.
Okay, so I took you to PsycInfo via the Psychology Research Guide. But once you know the name of the database you want to go to, you don't have to go to the research guide every time. You can click on the Indexes and Databases tab and type in the title of the index that you want to use. In this case, for this exercise, we're going to be using Web of Science. So we can just type it here, but be sure to click on the Indexes and Database tab. Then we come to a record for it, and it tells you what's inside, and we can click to connect. And it doesn't know that I'm on campus, so I'm going to log in.
And one of the things about Web of Science that's interesting is this is not just a great source for the sciences. It definitely is. When you're searching in Web of Science, it's over 7,000 science journals that you're searching. So it's a really great, it's a great general source because it's not just 7,000 science journals. It also contains social sciences content, and some arts and humanities content.
Who's the archaeology person? Not here? Do we
Oh,
have
we
one?
got a few,
Oh, there you
yeah.
are. Okay. Not so good, not so complete for archaeology, but really great for everybody else. So it's some place you would visit, but it's not the last place for the archaeologist.
So hopefully everybody can go in here and do a quick, let's take, a minute in Web of Science, and then we're going to continue on, and I'll talk to you a bit about how you can maximize your search in Web of Science.
So throw in some keywords and just see what happens. Make a note of your results. Getting too many, getting too few, what seems to be the problem. This is just a trial search, just to warm up. All right, so everybody should have done a search, and it doesn't matter if it didn't get you the results that you want, because now we're going to show you how to tune up your search so that it's more precise, more powerful, and just all around better.
Okay, so you remember how we were talking about the survey that you filled in earlier? So here's some of the questions that also were raised, and then we're going to talk about now with reference to Web of Science. So some of you were asking about Boolean operators, and the people who were accurate, because we tested that, and I'll show you that shortly, that while some of you, or most of you know about the OR operator, the AND operator turned out to be more difficult for the group. And it makes sense because we use these a little differently in language than we do in searching. So Boolean operators, we're going to get to that. There was like 80% of you said, how do I find the most highly cited literature on a certain topic? And we're going to show you that now. And somebody asked, how can I make sure I've found everything? I don't want to repeat an experiment that's already been done. And I certainly can sympathize with that. That's a question we get a lot. That's a daily question that we work with. So that's what we're going to talk about now, is how to go into Web of Science and make sure that we've got everything. So almost everybody knew that you're going to get the most results with the OR operator, dog or cat or elephant. That's going to get the most information on a topic. But fewer than a quarter of you knew the best search. And that's understandable, that thinking that a third of the group has never had a library instruction class, that would make sense. So we're going to talk about a couple of different things that are happening. The good news is that about a quarter of you did know the right answer. And so what I'd like is to ask anybody who thought this was the right answer, what is happening with the asterisk in this? Somebody who's had a class before, what's that asterisk doing there?
I see a hand over there.
Do you see? Okay, thank you. 'Cause
I think it's supposed to be so like the asterisk shows like beetle can also be beetles, or climate change could be climatic, or climate change could be changes. So yeah.
absolutely. So it's what you've just done by using that. It's called a truncation symbol. You may have heard of that. You may have heard of wildcard. What this does is it expands your search in a really very useful way. And we'll try that in just a minute in Web of Science. Who knows what those parentheses are doing?
Remember algebra. Do I see a hand?
This is the side. Okay.
Kind of hard to explain, but when you have A or B and A, the problem is you don't know if A or B is one thing and B, or it can be A or B and B separately. So
Yes, you're actually explaining an important concept. If you don't have parentheses there, what have you joined together? What is the order of the joining, right? Excellent. So what we've just said by putting parentheses around this is we've said, please give me any literature on pine beetles or on the scientific name for pine beetle is the concept A. And that's where the and works out here, is that we then force any of those papers which are about pine beetle, or the scientific name for pine beetle, to also be about climate change. So what was happening in many of the survey results was that folks were thinking that if I say and, that means I'm going to get more. In this case, when you say and, you actually limit, because you force both things to be true. Let's take that search now and go into Web of Science.
When I'm doing these kinds of searches, it helps me to think that the stuff inside the brackets gets done first, and then the stuff outside those brackets gets done next. So it's like when you say beetle or Latin word, it's going to grab all those things. And then once it has got the database, it's retrieved all those things, it's going to look at each one and say, okay, I'm keeping the climate change one. So the first thing is to get that big set.
Now what I'm doing here is I actually wanted to show why that truncation is so useful. I've put in my search here without using truncation. And one of the other things you'll notice that I've done is that I've separated out. Instead of using the parentheses, I've put these into 2 boxes. I find it easier because we can actually expand even more. And that's one of the techniques that we're going to counsel you to try as well. When you're thinking about your own research question, what are the synonyms that you're going to want to join with the OR operator? Like in my case, the pine beetle or the scientific name. And let's just try that search now. You'll notice that I changed the field to topic, and that means it's a keyword search in just the record about the article, not in the full text of the article. I'm emphasizing that on purpose because we do want to talk to you about Google Scholar and another tool called Summon, which actually have a different strategy for searching, and it's important to understand that what we're doing right now is searching the record about the article, not the full text of the article. So we're getting 218 results. That's great, but I'm going to go back and now add the truncation. So simply by adding truncation, let's see how that impacts our results. Okay, so we've got another 7 results. So those are 7 papers that we wouldn't have had in our set. And who knows if that's important or not. There might be a key paper that we're missing. Anything that I'm missing up here? Okay. So one of the other things I would like to suggest is that you think about your synonyms as well. And with a topic like climate change, I'm sure you can think of maybe some other. So global warming is another natural one that we would try. So as you think about your concepts that you're working on, be sure to broaden those out. The last thing I wanted to point out was that I'm using these quotes. I've been doing that without just explaining who can tell what those quotes are doing around those words. Yeah?
I think the quotes will make 2 words become a phrase. If you do not add the quotes, it will be something about climate and then something about change.
Right. So those 2 words could be quite a distance from each other and have no relationship to each other. Excellent. So that's an important way of narrowing in a really effective way.
Works in Google too, by the way. Quotation marks searches something as an exact phrase.
Okay. So we've got our results. I'm going to make it a little bit smaller so we can see what we've got. One of the things that in most databases, they're trying to serve it up with relevancy ranking, so Google Scholar does that. In this database, and in many others you'll see, they have by publication date, so they're serving up the most recent publication. But we can, in this database, actually affect the sort, and essentially it's like we're taking a deck of cards and we're putting them into a new order. So what I've done is I clicked on the sort, and I'm now going to time cited, highest to lowest. It reshuffles the deck, and it puts this paper at the top. So this is a paper from 2008, not the most recent paper, but the reason it's appearing at the top is that it's been cited in 411 other papers which are indexed in Web of Science. Why would that be useful for me to know? Somebody who's, yeah.
It's more credible.
It-
If more paper used, it's probably more credible.
It could be more credible, absolutely. It's definitely something I want to pay attention to. And it's like 411 other researchers have said, this is worthy of putting in the bibliography for my paper, that I'm building on this research. So when you're trying to make sense of what you need to pay attention to in a result set, knowing what's the most highly cited literature, you can see would be a really useful list of papers to look at. Any questions about this? Yeah.
What happens if you don't have the heuristic mark? Like, if you don't have the truncation symbol, what will happen to the search?
If you didn't have the truncation symbol, what happens is it searches for the singular, or let's try that quickly. I'm just going to go back, pull out the asterisk. Some of my words get a little bit, I'm going to add back some of the letters just so it's meaningful. And now we try that search. So these are smaller numbers. I wish it was more dramatic, but we went from 230 papers to 223. So the point here is that you would be missing those 7 other papers, and it could be even more depending on the topic. You could be missing them because you thought climate change, but the paper there was a great seminal paper that was written in Europe, and they call it climatic change, and you missed it because you didn't think of their wording. So that's what we're trying to get away from, or we're trying to work with, is to think of alternative wording.
And also, like, how can you tell which word to truncate, which word to not truncate?
Well, excellent question. One of the things we can always work with the librarian is one thing that we can help you with that process to consider what are the best strategies for you. But think about words where they may have been described in, it may be both a noun and a verb, like climate change could be the climate is changing. You can imagine there's different ways that word could be used. Or if there's potential plural, so pine beetle or pine beetles is also a way that it might be described. But we can always assist you with that. So one of the great things about being part of a workshop like this is just for you a huge takeaway is that there are a lot of strategies to get at the literature. And there's a lot of ways to evaluate that literature and find the best ones. And there's people that you can partner with to do that. So to really work with your librarian as well on that. One of the things, I don't know if we talked about UBC eLink. Have we?
No, we haven't.
So I've now found some great papers. I want to go, I could view the art abstract, take a look at that. If I click on the title, I open up the whole paper. Sorry, I open up the whole record about it. But to actually get to the paper, I click on UBC eLink. And this is how you get to the full text of your paper. Now, one of the things that you'll find, I find there's some confusion when people use UBC eLink. First, I want to point out that this is normally what happens. It serves it up, there's the article, I can read it, I can print it, I can send it. But sometimes what happens is you get this UBC eLink, and it says no full text available right here. Is that the end of the story? Has anybody done anything after that? Or just said, UBC doesn't have it, I'm going to move on. Well, the thing is, we may have it. We have a real commitment to getting content online if we can, but not everything is available online. And we may have older materials which are only available in print, and even new materials which are only available in print. So the next step, if that said no full text available, is to take a look, a search in the UBC library catalog. Okay?
We'll show you how to do that in a minute.
Yeah.
Coming up soon.
And we can always get content through Interlibrary Loan as well. So we have an incredible collection here, but if we don't have it, we can also get it for you. Okay?
Mm-hmm. And if you're an undergraduate writing a paper that's due tomorrow, then you're not going to wait for Interlibrary Loan. But in a real research project, in a real environment here, then you can wait for Interlibrary Loan, because maybe that one paper is going to be the one that tells you your experiment's already been done. So you have a bit more time, and interlibrary loan for an article comes very quickly. You have it in 24, 48 hours typically.
We're going to go on now to a quick activity. So if you've got Web of Science open, if you can try a search for your topic now, thinking about some of the things that we've been talking about, the Boolean operators, thinking about some of the synonyms you might use, how you might use truncation to broaden your search. Using the and effectively, that it's not adding, it's going to be forcing two things to be true. And there's some other limiters there that you may want to try as well, and certainly the time-setted sort. So that's something you can try.
Okay, so try out your search. We'll be running around to help if you need help. See if your search results, now that you know how to put your terms together, you can get some better search results. Okay, I'm taking over for Catherine because she can't talk anymore. We both have a cold, but you can see that nothing is coming out of her mouth. So from time to time, she may have to do some hand signals with me for the things that I don't know, but bear with us. So in Web of Science, we saw that there's some great features, including the sort by time cited. Down the side, we have some of those things that we talked about in the previous database. You can limit by document type. You can limit by author. I think there's a place somewhere here to limit by author affiliation.
It's the review paper.
Oh, yes, and review papers. Yay. So with our pine beetles, we want to have a look at the review paper, and so we can build our research on top of the work that somebody else has already done in reading hundreds of papers for us. Okay, so there we go. Lots of features here, but not every feature. In this database, you can't limit to human subjects. It's just not one of the features. So am I done with this? No, I need my outline. Okay, so we've done searches in Web of Science, and we've shown you a discipline-specific database, and you've noted that there are several, or more than several, discipline-specific databases for your field. And those databases have great advantages for you because they've already gotten rid of all the stuff that isn't in your discipline. You can still use the search off the library homepage, and it includes the discipline-specific databases, and it includes the library's books and videos, and it's this huge database, which is good, because it's multidisciplinary and it's very big, and it's bad because it's multidisciplinary and it's very big. So if I put vision in here, I'm going to get all sorts of stuff about religious visions and visionaries and all kinds of stuff, whereas if I'm back in PsycInfo, I'm just going to get seeing with your eyes kind of information. So it's good and it's not good. So what pine beetles here. And when I am looking at my results, I can limit my results to books, to journal articles. I can choose more here, and maybe limit my results to a book or an ebook. I'm not finding any reference books here because my terms are too narrow. So I can follow the links to full text from here and do a whole bunch of things. If you want to use this database for articles that will promote the research or help you understand the research in your area, you want to use this limit to articles from scholarly publications. A couple of you asked questions at the end of the questionnaire about how do I decide whether a resource is credible? What about a BBC News report? Well, a BBC News report is probably correct, but in the context of science research and humanities research, that kind of news doesn't really count. What you've got to have, the information that you have to find has got to be from a peer-reviewed journal. unless you're studying news, if news is like the language of news or the layout of news or how women are portrayed in news, then the news is okay. But in the case of your scientific and almost scientific resource, the news doesn't count at all. Did you have a question?
Yeah, what's the difference between the articles from scholarly publications, including peer review, and it says in medical equivalent to articles from peer review publications? What's the difference?
One is going to get you more than the other. So scholarly publications is bigger, and not all scholarly publications are peer-reviewed. For example, if there's a conference of physicists that they have a conference and each person presents a paper at the conference and all of those papers are put together, that's not a peer-reviewed journal, but it is a scholarly publication. So our results are going to be bigger than if we limit to peer-reviewed articles. We can do this, we can see. So that's 303. And now if we do just peer-reviewed, this had better be smaller, yes. Working without a net here. Now, peer-reviewed journals can also have letters to the editor and news and book reviews and all sorts of stuff. So just because you're in a peer-reviewed journal doesn't mean you're going to find everything you need. Okay. Now, let's see if we can find the times cited. And it's not appearing. Should I go to the next page?
One of the things.
You talk to me and I'll talk to them.
Well, one of the things we talked about too, so about the BBC idea, is that you may find really good content in a journal article, a popular news source, Wikipedia. You can find good stuff there, but the important thing is to trace it back to the primary source, the actual paper that it's reporting on. So if you're having trouble doing that, we can help you with that, but that's the way to make it, find information wherever you find it, but then go back to the source.
So I'm not finding the cited by. Nothing is cited by in here.
We'll just leave it there.
Okay. All right, so now I'm going to grab an article here. So here's Google Scholar. How many of you have used Google Scholar? It's a great source. Like the library homepage search, which is called Summon, Google Scholar is really big. And it has stuff from a lot of different disciplines, and that's its strength, and that's also its weakness. If you put vision in here, you're going to get those visionaries again. So the great thing about Google Scholar, though, is that you can do your search. In this case, I'm going to put in pine beetles. Oh, come on. You can do your search. Has anybody searching in Google Scholar at the moment? Why is this not working? Thoughts? Yeah, standing on the shoulder of a giant who is not cooperating right now. Is anybody getting to Google Scholar? No. So shall we just, there we go. Okay, so I've done my search and I've got a list of articles about Google Scholar, and they're displaying in an order that Google Scholar thinks is putting the most relevant one on the top. So that's got my words in the title. I can change the date range here, but the thing that I really want to draw your attention to, and this is what I use Google Scholar for most of the time, it's I think the best feature, the most useful feature for my work, is you can click on the left here to see which articles have cited this article. So once you find one good article, you can put it into Google Scholar and then see who cited it. And so you can bring that up to date. So this one in 2008, I think we found the same one, 660 times. So Google Scholar typically, we were testing it this morning, will find even more articles that cited an article than Web of Science. But it doesn't have the sophistication that Web of Science has. It doesn't let you limit. It doesn't have anything except a very simple keyword search. Now, I came to this from Google Scholar, and because I'm on campus, I see the UBC e-link. But if I were off campus, the UBC e-link wouldn't appear when I connected to Google Scholar by going scholar.google.com. To make that UBC e-link appear, I have to start from the library homepage. And remember how we did this. Indexes and databases. Google Scholar. Oh. And if I come in through this way, there's a little programming running around in the background that grabs the fact that you're a UBC person, is going to ask you for your campus-wide login, and is going to serve up the UBC e-link from inside Google Scholar. So you shouldn't be paying for articles. You should always be able to connect to them for free if they're inside the UBC library database. So now we're on our last page. So, is there somebody who has a remaining question? Yes?
When you do a search engine, what's the difference between putting apostrophe, quotation mark, and putting parentheses?
Parenthesis doesn't usually do anything unless you have and or. The quotation mark says search this as an exact phrase. But it's not going to, let's try this. We can do an experiment. A very slow experiment. Well, we'll just see how that happens. So what we want to say to you in closing is that for credibility, you can look for peer-reviewed articles. You can consult with your professor. A good journal there are lots of journals in the world that are peer-reviewed, and some of them are better than others. If you talk to the graduate students in the lab where you're working, or you talk to your mentor, they've got a journal that's very prestigious, the best journal in their field. And when they read research and want to write an article that's published somewhere, they want it to be in that journal. Just like going to Harvard is going to a really good university. We're Canada's Harvard, or Harvard's UBC of the United States. So you can discuss with your mentor which are really the best journals in a particular discipline. So for credibility, peer-reviewed journals cited by other people, your mentor recommends it, and all that reading that you did in reference books and books, you're going to see names coming up again and again. So some journals and some scholars, they'll start to feel like members of your own family. You'll see those names so often. And that's how you can tell what's an influential author, an influential researcher, an influential department in your discipline. So from dogs and cats going nowhere, but you can do an experiment to see what happens when you use parentheses or quotation marks in different databases and see what they mean. Oh, here we go. Dogs, cats, 786,000. Yeah, that's a very interesting concept of time, isn't it? And we'll see how this turns out. Now, one thing we haven't addressed directly is citation formatting, but in the spreadsheet that we gave you, There's links to the library's website that tells you about different citation formats, and it's a link to workshops on different citation formatting software. So there's a way for free to have all your citations formatted automatically. Wouldn't that be nice? And all of the citation formatting software is pretty good. It has a little trouble with uppercase letters from time to time, but it certainly can save you a lot of anxiety and unhappiness. So that's in the spreadsheet we sent you. And we want to show you how to get help. So let's go to the library homepage. And then Get Research Help. Click on the down arrow. And here's all of the different ways you can get help. So you can write a question into the chat reference box. This is open about 65 hours a week, and there's someone at the other end to answer your questions. You can get help from the subject liaison librarian, and usually we don't do really long one-on-one sessions with undergraduates because there are too many, but because you're in this program, you're really doing research, so you get the same kind of care and attention that we would give to a graduate student. So when you get in touch with your librarian, say, hi, I'm in the undergraduate research program and I'm working in Dr. So-and-so's lab and can you help me, blah. And we'll say, yes, we'll help you a lot, as opposed to, well, we have to sort of ration our help. There you go. So that's help. That's all we know. So the takeaways we want you to have is use the research guide, use the subject librarian, use the articles that you find and the encyclopedia articles and the books to find the words that you're going to put into your searches. Look at your discipline-specific databases and see what features you can use. Do you want to limit to people? Do you want to limit to some Latin name of a phylum? Phylum? Anyhow, use all the features that are there. You're going to forget lots of things we told you, but you can come back and ask again. Also, use that database, use that Excel spreadsheet and keep track of the searches that you do in the databases as you do them. Both Catherine and I have had students crying in our office because, male and female, because they can't remember what they've done and they are going to have to start again. So if you keep track of which databases you searched and which keywords you use, you won't have to start over. Yes?
How do you keep track of your database?
I gave you an Excel spreadsheet. Put the name of the database there and put in your search terms. Let me see, I can show you where that is. No, I can't. Sorry, I cannot show you because that window is gone. Goodbye!
Please don't leave yet.
Oh, don't leave yet. Okay.
I hope you all enjoyed the workshop. It was very informative. If I was in for a second year, I know I didn't know half of this. I learned all of this probably in the last year, actually. I'm in the fourth year, so that says something. Please be mindful of using them as resources. It's greatly generous of them to be treating you guys as graduate students conducting real research. Something that was not required of them whatsoever. So when you think about using those resources, keep that in mind. The time is very valuable, and the fact that they're here. So please, once more, a round of applause.
Our pleasure.